Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? We're coming at you once again with your favorite podcast. Everybody knows by now it's Keepin It Rio, the world famous Keepin It Rio podcast. And this, friends, is episode 162, which is still crazy for me to even imagine. But today, ladies and gentlemen, I've got one of the most anticipated guests that I've ever had on my show, quite honestly. And I am really, really looking forward to the next hour or so of my life, because I think it's going to be really valuable. And I think we're going to learn a lot about our guy here. Without any hesitation, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome to the show the one and only Mr. Hunter Ballew. Hunter, how's it going, bud?
That's good, man. I appreciate you having me on. I didn't realize you had that many episodes, man.
I'm almost on 3 years of doing Keepin It Rio now. So yeah, they add up pretty quickly. And it's one of those things. I told Becca Switzer my goal is 2,500. So wow, we're just scratching the surface, until someone takes me off the air. I'm going to keep doing it. And the reality is nobody can take me off the air because I made it up myself. So
162?
162 out of 2,500. We've got a lot of ground to cover in the next 15 years or whatever. But
how many did you go at,
What's that?
How many's Joe Rogan got?
Oh, Joe Rogan, I think, is well into the thousands. I'm pretty sure. I think he does his daily, right? Or every other day, something like that. He's way out there. I got the same microphone as him, and that's about where the comparisons end for us. But we got the same haircut, too. But one day I will overtake Joe Rogan. I'm proclaiming that now on Keepin It Rio episode 162 with Hunter Ballew. When I overtake Joe Rogan as the #1 podcaster in the world, you will be the first guest on the show that celebrates that victory. So anyways, enough about me and Keepin It Rio. Let's talk about the important person here in the room today, which is Hunter Ballew. I don't even know how to introduce you, quite frankly. You've got so many different things going on, so many different things that you've been doing, so many different events. Let's start with that. Tell us a little bit about some of the stuff you've got going on, and we'll run with it from there.
Yeah, man. For one, I just appreciate you having me on. I enjoy getting on here and chopping it up. I always love the shows where we could just get on here and, not use the pun, but keep it real. I'm not big on scripts. A lot of times I'll do podcasts and people are like, all right, we want to do these questions and you can pre-answer them. And I'm like, dude, I honestly would rather just get on there and you ask me the question. I'd rather it just be fluid as I'm on the show. So yeah, man, life is good. Events have been wild, as you can imagine, the last couple of years. I feel like I've been telling the team recently, we do so many retreats throughout the years, usually about a dozen retreats a year is what we do. And that's in addition to Revolt Live and the Road to RoofCon, those mini events, and the RoofCon itself with a few thousand people there. So it's pretty crazy. And I feel like what kind of happened is everyone was pent up during COVID, and then the bust happened and everyone was like, I'm going to travel. And now we're starting to see a decline and people are like, okay, I'm going to stay home and focus on the business. And I've even experienced that myself. Like, I love hosting events, even from back when I was in high school. Like, I was the guy that was always bringing people together for bonfires every weekend. And that can really continued through the fire department when I was in the Marine Corps. Like, I just love bringing people together. But just, I've done so much travel in the last couple of years that I feel like there's this decline for others and even for me a little bit. And part of that, I think, is because my kids are getting a little bit older. My little boy, he just turned 5 in December, and, he's playing ball, and my little girl is 18 months now. And so I want to be home a little bit more, but I love what I get to do inside of those events. And so one of the things we did a little over a year ago now was launched a coaching program within Revolt. So guys that come through and join our program, join our mastermind, once they've been in there for a long enough time and they know all the exercises and they're proficient and they've completed Fearless 44, our challenge, and like some other requirements, then we let them test to become a coach. And so now those guys are running events without me. So that's super cool. Like our goal the entire time has been leadership, developing leaders that go out and develop other leaders, and the whole mindset of multiplication over addition, which is what John Maxwell talks about all the time. And so it's been really cool to see that, to see people impacted. And it's really unique, because people join our mastermind. Like, you don't have to be a part of our mastermind to go to the retreat. So people go to the retreat, and then some of those people join our mastermind. They show up to our member retreat. We just had it this past week out in Utah, and I don't know them. And that's really weird for me because for years it was like, if you joined Revolt, I already knew you. We had a pre-existing relationship because of me running an event that you came to. So that's been really unique, you know, to run a member retreat, to run an event, to run RoofCon, and have people come up that have joined the mastermind and I don't know them personally. But it's just another step in the progression of Revolt, our mission to develop leaders.
And I'll tell you what, you do a great job with that. I know some of the people that are regular attendees that are in your group that are just some of the best people, not just in our industry, but in life. And I commend you for that because, you know, like you say, even though that's something you love doing, that's a huge amount of labor. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy who puts on RoofCon. And I believe RoofCon to be the standard for our industry as far as events go at this point. And the thing that really amazes me the most about RoofCon is it's still relatively new. I remember the first RoofCon just a few years ago. It seems like let's kind of kick off our conversation with that. That's the big event, and I've got a lot of offshoots from it. But what led to this idea? You know, let's put together an event. We're going to call it RoofCon. Obviously, when you name it that, you're expecting it probably to grow pretty big because that's a big name. Tell me about the early days, the thought process behind it. What led you to starting this entire thing? And did you ever think it would get as big as it already has?
Yeah, I love sharing the story, the founding story of RoofCon specifically, because it's kind of funny. You know, so I got out of the fire department in the end of 2015. It was December 22nd. It was my last day at the fire department, 2015. So 2016, I spent just trying to figure out what I was going to do. I thought I had it all figured out. That came crashing down relatively quick after I left the fire department. So I started learning marketing. That led me to roofers. I was helping roofers. And so I started Cornerstone, my roofing company, really just as a case study originally. And then that started to take off. And I was like, you know what, after a couple of years, beginning of 2019, I was like, I should take this serious. You know, I had helped a lot of other people grow their company. I was like, I should just take this company serious. So in January of 2019, I did my first batch hire of sales reps. I created what's called Six-Figure Blueprint that a bunch of people have knocked off intentionally. Like, we share Six-Figure Blueprint, the framework, so people can make their own for their company and help their sales reps make six figures. And so we started taking it serious in 2019. Well, you know, knowing me in 2019, I'm like, I'm just going to focus on Cornerstone. I'm going to do this one thing. And dude, it's just not possible. My mind just doesn't work like that. So I'll make it like 6 months. June of that year, I launched a mastermind, it's Revolt now. Originally, I called it Bold Brotherhood because it was just going to be for men. We eventually changed it to Revolt because I wanted it to be for men and women. But we launched Bold in like June of that year. When August, we threw together a small event here in Greenville, South Carolina. We had 40 or so people there. And one of the people that came and spoke at it was a guy named Pate Smith. Do you know Pate?
Yes, sir.
An attorney out of Texas. And he was a PA at the time with one of the adjusters in the industry. And he came to the event and he spoke. And at the end of the event, he was like, man, you know what? We really need something like this for the roofing space, like specifically for the roofing space. Something not just focused on business, but focused on personal development. Because at the time, there's really none of that. Like, it was mostly money, money, money. Some of the events out there were like, hey, come and, you know, do drugs and go to the strip club and get away from your family. We're just not that set of people. Not to knock those set of people, but that's just not us. So we were like, okay, well, how do we create an event where people want to come back every year, where people look at it as really like a family reunion of the roofing industry, a place where you could bring your kids, where you could bring your nephew and show them what it's like to be a contractor. And so that was August of 2019. I left that event from talking with Pate, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Let's throw it together. We'll do it in November. So like less than 3 months out, naturally just throwing stuff together. I got lots of ideas, not the best to implement, and I have to bring in good people to do that. But I was sitting at a local restaurant right here in town. I'm in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, a little small town. And I was sitting at the table with my wife, and we had our son, and he was tiny, like not even a year old yet. And I have a picture actually on my phone that I share sometimes of Turner. He had a lemon in his mouth. And I was looking up names for the conference, and I found roofcon.com, and I was like, oh, dude, this is sick. I can't believe it's available. And they wanted $5,000 for it, Chuck, $5,000. And
I knew what they had.
Do what?
And they knew what they had.
Yeah, $5,000. And I was like, you know what? Like, everybody this is how entrepreneurship goes. Anybody watching this, you felt this before. Everyone on the outside, your family, your friends, your employees, everyone's like, oh, you're killing it. You're making all this money, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh, cash flow is tough. Like this year, we had taken it pretty serious, done like 5 million, nothing huge, but decent in like our first year of taking it serious. But that didn't mean I just had $5,000 to throw at some URL for a conference. I didn't even know if it was going to make it. And I just looked at my wife. I was like, what do you think? And she said, do it. We'll figure it out. And so I bought it sitting right there at that table at Shorefields here in Travelers Rest. Bought roofcon.com for $5,000. They actually let me finance it, I'm pretty sure, for like $1,000 for 5 months or something like that. So we threw the event 90 days, less than 90 days later. And we had some great people come out and speak at that first event. And at the end of it, we had 10 vendors and about 39 people, I think, if you count inside the pictures that I have, about 39 or so people. I really don't think it was over 50 for sure. And at the end of the event, I was embarrassed, dude. Like I was pretty embarrassed. I remember going around some of the speakers like, hey, I'm sorry. I hope you don't feel like you wasted your time. And one of those guys grabbed me around the shoulders and was like, look, man, we just need to change one life. If we change one life, that's all that matters. And so I left that event just not knowing if we were going to do it again. I was like, man, this was okay, but like we didn't crush it. I don't know if we really made that big of a difference. And dude, if there was 39 people there, 38 of them were posting on social media the next day about how it was the best thing they'd been to and how they loved the personal development side of it. And so I was like, all right, I'm renewed. I'm excited. Let's throw it the next year. Well, we start planning for the next year. I hire a full-time events coordinator to come on to help me, hire someone for sales, and start building out a team to build this conference. And what happens beginning in 2020? COVID. And so we went from 39 folks and 10 vendors in year one in 2019 to 2020, hosting it in the NRG Center in Houston. Didn't know if we were even going to be able to do it. Didn't know if people would show up. I just felt intuitively like, hey, it's roofers, it's contractors, they'll come, right? If anything, we might have a better turnout because they just want to revolt.
Yeah, our immune systems are already pretty good. We've been, sucking in drywall dust for 30 years. We're fine.
Yeah. So we're like, hey, let's do it. So yeah, that next year, man, we throw it in October, and sure enough, industry rallies behind us. We had 881 people show up, 50 vendors. The next year, we did Orlando in 2021. The third year, we had 125 vendors and 2,200 people. The next year, it was 3,400, 250 vendors. And then this last year, we finally broke the 5,000. And so it was really cool to see the progression, man, but not easy at all. People look at events and they do quick math and they think, oh, this person's making all this money. Absolutely not. I've never made a penny off of RoofCon. The closest I ever came to making money off of RoofCon was the first year. I just about broke even the first year. Every year after that, we've lost our butt. In 2021 or 2022 particularly, I tell the story often. We lost $1 million in 2022. Part of that was, my fault. I own it. We went real big because we were expecting this big crowd. We built out a stage, like concert level stage, brought in Tim Tebow, John Maxwell, like big speakers. And we had to build that stage because we were expecting so many people. And then a hurricane hit in Orlando in, October, November, we had it that year. We weren't expecting it at all. It killed our sales numbers for tickets. People didn't show. And man, we lost big. And that one hurt, dude, hurt bad. And so that kind of sent me into a dark season that next year, just questioning like, man, I do this and I enjoy this. I do it for impact. Don't get me wrong. Like I want to make money. Of course I want to make money. It is a business. I want to make money, but also do it for impact. And this past year, man, we came back strong. It was great. Diego moved into a role where he was full-time leading it. He started in sales, worked his way up to running RoofCon, and he has done a great job. Like so proud of him, man. You talk about RoofCon being the industry standard. For one, I appreciate that. We got some stout competition. I don't know if that's quite true, but I appreciate that. And Diego and the team are to credit with that, not me. They're the ones that are doing the work every single day, getting good people there, people like you that support it, talk about it, and people like Roofer that promote it, bring their people and set up their booths, and the contractors that come and the speakers that go all out. Like, dude, we're just so freaking blessed. And I really mean it, man, when I say that we want it to be the family reunion. Like we want it to be that thing. I tell people that For RoofCon, we want it to be the family reunion. For Revolt, like our retreats, our couples retreats, the men's retreats, the women's retreats, we want those to be like the summer camp, the annual summer camp. When you were a kid, if you're in Boy Scouts, like I was in Boy Scouts as a kid, or like church camp, every year when you left, you were just sick at your stomach because you were like, man, I'm not going to see that kid again until next year. That's from Columbia, South Carolina. And you couldn't wait to go back to camp the next year. I want our retreats and our events to be like that. I want you to want to come back to them. Not like, hey, it was pretty good last year. I want you to want to be there.
Yeah. And dude, you do such a good job of that. I've been to every RoofCon. I didn't go to the first one because obviously I just didn't even know about it at that point. The one in Houston, I took my team to. We were part of that 881 or whatever the number was. And I'm proud to say that. That was quite the experience for us because I had a bunch of new guys with me. We were getting in trouble for not wearing our masks and all that stuff. And that was one of those things too, where I started to wonder, is this going to hurt this event before the event really starts to show what it can actually do? And during that COVID year, I love the fact that it jumped up such a big margin there, but you were in a major venue. Like you say, you've only made money on it once. So when you do that event in Houston and you get a nice bump up and you're looking at it, do you still kind of question whether or not you want to continue on the next year? And I mean, how sincere are those talks that you have with yourself? You really got to dig deep and say, look, I'm aware that I'm probably going to lose money. I'm aware that, all these things could go wrong. I helped Lee Haight with his conference last year. I was down in Florida for 3 months and, I see all the things that can happen behind the scenes that people never know about. Yeah. And it's crazy because we had this whole thing planned out. And if you go look at the actual event versus what the plans were, they don't even resemble each other. So you're constantly moving and doing all that stuff. Yeah. You mentioned Diego. I think Diego, God bless Diego. He's Mr. RoofCon, I mean, you came up with the idea, but I think Diego, when people think of RoofCon at this point, I think your goal was probably just that, is we think of Diego and we say, man, that's the guy. And, during that process, how much of a key role did he play? I mean, obviously you said he started in sales and he just kind of grew through it, but from that Houston event up till, drawing over 5,000 people, you've had moments of despair. You've had moments of second guessing yourself. How key is it to have guys like that around, and how much have they helped you when, reality is you probably did want to quit several times?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, as I said, and I don't just say this to, make it all emotional on the podcast, but really couldn't do it without him. Having the people on your team to get the stuff done and actually execute and go sell the vendors and sell the tickets and focus on operations and getting the event set up and scheduling with this person and taking care of vendor load in it. Like you just can't imagine how many moving parts. Like people look at it and they think it's a 3-day event. It is a full-time job for 6 people all year round. Like it's for real. And going back to the money thing, like, yeah, dude, if it wasn't for my other companies, no, you couldn't keep doing it because you do lose money getting it going. Now, not to say that there aren't opportunities that come along my way as we build it and we grow and we build credibility and authority in the space. Sure, there's opportunities that come. We get people that join Revolt. We get people that come on as growth partners. Like there's different things that come from it, but attributed to that specific event, that certain range of 2 months before, a month after, the income just doesn't crush it for the event. So we've been getting it more and more narrow, and we're feeling pretty good about this year that we're going to finally break even, make some money on the event. I'm really excited about it, man. Not just to make money, but just to turn it to an actual business, because there's self-doubt around that too for me. It's like, all right, I coach all these people in building a business. I need to really take RoofCon seriously and quit making it this business where we just dispense money from our other businesses and we're losing it on every year, to we're going to actually make some money. So that's been a focus for us, and having someone like Diego that's looking at the numbers every single day makes a massive difference, because we've not had that in the past. To me, it was just like this extra business, this event, and I wasn't looking at it all the time. So for him, the visibility every single day and every single week with me, going through scorecards and seeing where we're at and seeing if we're tracking for our goals, those things are absolutely key, man. And like having someone like Diego that when he goes to bed at night, he's thinking about how to improve it is so helpful, because I'm thinking about how to improve it, but I'm also thinking about how to improve roofing.com and Revolt and Cornerstone and RepCard and JT Roofs and, A&A Roofs and like all these other businesses that I'm a part of. And so to have someone solely focused on that is so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just going to keep getting bigger. I'm super excited to see, as RoofCon just gets more and more familiarized with our industry and how this thing works. It's going to continue to be the premier event for years to come, I believe. So congratulations on that. And one of the things that has always impressed me about RoofCon, the first one I went to, it was cool for me. I got to be on John Dye's podcast. He had that truck there with the wrap and all that. And I thought to myself, wow, this is pretty cool. And then as we've gone through the years, it's been the fact that you've gotten such elite level speakers to come to your event, the fact that you've had like unprecedented access to people. I was literally sitting maybe 10 feet away from John Maxwell when he was talking to us at lunch. And that to me was amazing because it was like, wow, that's a big time guy, Ed Milet. I met Ed Milet at your event. And I've had a good fortune of actually getting to talk to him a couple times, but I met him at your event. Tell me about this, okay? A roofing event. This is RoofCon. This isn't, self-improve con or anything like that. How do you get guys like John Maxwell, Ed Milet, and the like to come to a roofing specific event? What does that conversation sound like? And, how did you sell that to the elites?
Yeah, I think it does go back to the original discussion we're having, man. Like it didn't start with roofing in mind. It started with personal development, leadership development specifically. Something I say over and over and over, and people have heard me say many times if they've been around at all, is my personal life mission is develop millions of leaders that go on to impact billions of lives. So for me, it's all about leadership development. So, when we look for speakers, we're not just looking for guys that can grow a roofing company. We're not looking for just supplementers and marketers and salespeople and yada, yada. Like, no, that's not what it's about. For us, we want someone that is a sales rep, someone that's an operations manager, a secretary, a kid, as I mentioned. Like we have a good bit of kids that show up to RoofCon, and we're proud of that. We got some really cool stuff in the works this year for kids to come, and we let kids come for free. We want them to come and see what it's about. We want people to bring their families, and that's one of the reasons we kind of stuck tight in Orlando, because there's so many opportunities around there to marry up a trip to RoofCon and go to Disney or whatever while you're down there. But yeah, man, like for us, it has been leadership focused. How do we help develop people inside of our industry to become better leaders, not just roofing focused? Now we throw in all the other stuff too that I mentioned. We do that. We have the breakouts, we have the keynotes, we have all those things so you can learn from those folks too and improve your business and see an ROI on the event. But it all starts with leadership. So when we talk to people about our core values, integrity, leadership, legacy, we talk to people about our mission, they get it. It's something that they want to be a part of too.
Man, Hunter Ballew, you're changing lives, my friend. And I'm so proud to be talking with you today, because I can feel your passion through this computer screen, and it's got me all fired up. So let's kind of talk a little bit about how you are changing people's lives, how you're helping them. You've talked about your groups that you've got, you do Revolt, you do retreats, and you've got things like that. Something that you mentioned very briefly that I definitely want to talk to you about is Fearless 44. Yeah. I've seen this going around for a couple years now, and very intriguing to me. These the people are showing videos of what they're doing. Tell me a little bit about how the idea for Fearless 44 came about, and explain it a little bit to those that may not understand completely, such as myself.
Yeah, we actually started it in 2019 at that first retreat I ever did, sitting around with some guys and just came up with 8 daily tasks. Some of those tasks were based off of exercises that I had already created. But yeah, it's 8 daily tasks. It's all built around mind, body, and legacy. So stretch your mind, push your body, grow your legacy. The first 2 for mind are a 2-minute cold shower. That can be a cold plunge, but 2-minute cold shower, yeah, it's my least favorite. That's why I start with it. I just did my 7th round of it. I just finished a couple weeks ago, and this was the least worst that it ever was. So that's a positive. I guess I'm getting more used to it. The second part of it is 15 minutes of personal development. That could be reading a book. It could be listening to a podcast. It could be, training in a course or going to an event, going to church. It's just 15 minutes of personal development. That's mind, both your mind tasks. For body, you have a diet. So you just got to stick to a diet. It can be whatever you want, but you got to pick it and stick to it throughout the challenge. The second one for body is 60 minutes of physical activity every single day. And we actually encourage people to get outside and do stuff with their family. So at least once a week, for me, like I'll go walking or hiking or biking or something with my family and include them. And we encourage people to do that 1 to 2 times a week with their family. And then the other times can be in the gym. It can be CrossFit. It can be whatever, but physical activity for 60 minutes a day for 44 days without fail. And then the last 4, so that's 2 and 2 for mind and body. The last 4 are all legacy focused. So the first one is kick a bad habit. So that could be anything. It could be cursing. It could be an addiction to alcohol or porn or drugs or nicotine or anything. It could be cursing. It could be chewing on your fingernails. There's so many different things that we've seen people do over the years. The second one is review your fulfillment 50 or 6 bricks, 2 exercises I've come up with over the years that are kind of like goal setting exercises. And so we help people finish those on day 1. You establish all of those, and then you work towards completing them by the end of the challenge. Then your third one is what I call a scroll and dial. So you pick up your phone, you go to your contacts, and then you just scroll. You can scroll once or 20 times, and you just let it come to a rest. And then depending on the phone you have, you'll have like 9 to 13 options. You get to pick, but you have to pick somebody from that screen. And so the point of that is to get you out of your comfort zone, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to call that person. I haven't talked to them since high school. That's why you should, right? It's like getting people out of their comfort zone to just reach out. And what we tell people is do not tell them you're doing some challenge. Like don't say, hey, I'm doing Fearless 44 and I got to call you and talk for 2 minutes and then I'm good. No, just call them and ask how they are. Don't try to sell them a roof. Don't try to sell them a product. Just see how they are. And we've had, dude, so some amazing feedback from the scroll and dial. And then this next one as well, which is a Facebook Live. So every single day for 44 days, you do a Facebook Live for a minimum of 2 minutes. And the cheat code for that is people are like, I don't know what to talk about for 2 minutes every day. Well, the cheat code is you do your 15 minutes of personal development, and then you talk about it for 2 minutes. And you share, and people are like, oh, well, they don't want to hear me talk about John Maxwell's book. Well, that's not true, because you're going to talk about the points and condense what you've learned and share it. And then you're going to give a story about your perspective and something that relates to something he said. And people will absolutely, dude, Chuck, I have made this guarantee to thousands of people around the world. People have taken this challenge all around the world. Canada, Malaysia, Africa, all around the world, thousands of people. I've said, hey, listen, if you do this challenge and nobody reaches out to you and tells you that it made an impact on them from you doing the Fearless 44 Facebook Lives every day for 44 days, I give you $1,000. Doesn't happen, dude.
You've never had to pay $1,000 to anybody, have you?
Happen. It will not happen. It will not happen. I had a girl sign up for it last year. She didn't have a Facebook page. She heard me speak, didn't have a Facebook page. She created a Facebook page. She had like 33 friends. So she started her Facebook page. She did Fearless for, I don't remember if it was 4 or 7 days, but it was for sure less than a week. By the time she finished, she had like 33 friends that she had added. And she said she didn't make it like halfway through the next day. And people were hitting her up like, hey, why didn't you do your Facebook Live yesterday? Those were awesome. I appreciate you doing those. Yada, 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 yada. People pay attention, especially for people that aren't like me and you. Like, we're pretty active on social. For people that all of a sudden just start doing a Facebook Live, your friends and family are going to pay attention. And when you say something, it can absolutely make an impact on their lives. And the coolest thing, I was going to tie back into scrolling down Facebook Lives, we've had multiple people reach out and say that it saved their lives just from those, reaching out to the person at the right time, doing a Facebook Live that someone saw at the right time that was suicidal. And those are really, really cool to hear. And, you know, you're on day 23 and you get that from someone. When you get to day 27 and you think about quitting, you're not going to quit anymore because you know you're making an impact on other people. So, yeah, man, eight tasks. You got to do it every day. If you fail, if you don't do it, you got to start over. And it's fun, man. It's been really cool to see. We have some amazing testimonials from people that have gone through it and their lives have been changed, but also the lives of people around them have been changed.
Man, and that right there is so noble. I love seeing things like this where, you know, you just said you've changed people's lives. You've had people that were on the verge of committing suicide, And because of your program, it saved lives. That just speaks so much volume for who you are as a person and what you're really all about in not just in
It's
business,
really
but
the
in life.
participants, man. Like it's so cool to see the participants do that. You know, it's not even the challenge. It's just the fact that they're picking up the phone, they're doing the work,
Yep.
and then they see the result, even though they don't want to see the result because they're scared that people are watching them. Another thing that's so cool, man, is to watch someone that's never done any public speaking or never done a Facebook Live. Watch them on day one on their Facebook Live, and then go to day 44 and watch how they act and watch
Evolve.
their tonality. And yeah, it's just super cool to see, man.
I love that. So I always ask this about when I have people in service industries, I ask, about that one customer, that one person you've met along the way. With you, I want to ask this a couple different times, but with the people that you've helped along the way, the people that you've gotten to meet through your programs that you put on and for what you do for people, tell me about the one. There's got to be one person where you're like, hey, you know what? I didn't think this person would make it. I didn't think this person was going to be in it. And they ended up just absolutely shocking you and just completely destroying your expectations and have gone on to do that for others. Do you have one that you could think of specific?
Dude, that is tough, man. I hate even saying one, because there's so many good people. Are you talking specifically like clients of mine that have come through as clients and then they've evolved to do bigger and better stuff? Are you talking employees? Are you talking
just anybody in general that's been in like Fearless 44? You like you said, you start day one and you're awkward and you don't want to do it. The second day you want to quit. The third day you definitely don't want to do it. And by the 44th day, you're polished and you're having these positive interactions with people that you haven't spoken to in years. What's the best success story, I guess, would be the question out of that program?
Yeah. Let me I'll run through a couple because there's so many people that I'd love to acknowledge. And I hate to say one or five because I hate leaving people out. I'll just go through a couple. In terms of like team wise, to go back to Diego, to see Diego evolve is super cool. And I don't think he cared that I'd share this, but when he joined our team, he originally joined the Cornerstone team, our roofing company. And I don't remember what he was making, but it was like in the teens dollars per hour, I believe, at like a telecommunications company, not making much money. And he came in, and at this point we were not real big yet. So I was still doing the interviews. And, I'm selling in the dream. I'm talking about the vision, all the things, 6-figure blueprint, Cornerstone Kids Foundation. We're doing this, doing that. And he comes, he accepts the job after a Friday interview. And his wife's like, so what are you going to be doing? He's like, I'm not really sure. I don't really know. I was just kind of sold on we're going to be helping the community and doing this and doing that. So he comes into the meeting that next Monday. And Albert, our operations manager, who's been with me a long time, years basically since I started, Albert is talking about how you set the ladder up on the roof and when you climb up there, how to get off the ladder. And Diego said just a ton of fear just hit him. He was like, oh my gosh, I have to climb ladders. Like I had no clue I had to climb ladders. So to see him go from that, coming in as this employee at a company to evolving into the president of RoofCon and growing this and making great money and impacting so many lives is cool. To see his health journey is amazing. I don't know if you watched that a couple of years ago, him drop 60 pounds from 310 to 250. And now he's on another sprint trying to get down to 225 by this RoofCon. We had our director of partnerships, Tara, she joined the team about a year ago and she failed Fearless 44. I think she said 7 times and she just finished on her either her 7th or 8th time. She finally finished. She kept failing. She'd forget or wouldn't want to do something or whatever. And a lot of people could look at that and be like, oh, what a loser. It took her that many times. Absolutely not. I was so freaking proud. I am so freaking proud of her because she kept going. Do you know how many people go and get to day 28 and they're like, I don't want to do it. Or I forgot about my workout and it's midnight and I don't want to do that. Or I don't want to do my Facebook Live or scroll down or whatever. And they quit and they don't start again. I was so proud of her for that. When I think of members, man, do you know Taylor Ammons?
Yeah, Taylor was on my show about 2 months ago. I know Taylor, yes. He's quite the inspiration.
Love Taylor. Like Taylor shows up to RoofCon in 2021. At the time, he still got his alcohol issues. He's ready to fight a dude on the RoofCon floor. He hits me up afterwards apologizing. the stuff was a little bit justified. So I'm like, I'm not even mad at you, bro. Just do the stuff outside the conference hall. He comes to RoofCon like a year later, or comes to Revolt Retreat like a year later, joins Revolt, been a part of Revolt now for a year and a half. Got his wife involved. She's been to the retreats. We love her. She's part of the family. He becomes a coach. He literally just ran a retreat in Nashville like 2 or 3 weeks ago and impacted all these people that came to the retreat. That's been one of my favorites and that's not to say like us taking credit for it at all. That's fully giving him credit and saying, man, look at the transition of who he was to who he's become because he put in the work and because he had great people like Bubba and Erico and some of these guys around him. So, man, there's so many. I could go on and on and on. Tyler Streetman and Brandon Allen and Aaron Brookins and Dylan Mullins and Bob Hull and Ty Backer and there's so many good people, man. And I'm just grateful to be around for the ride. Stephen Masson's another one, similar story to Taylor Ammons. He had a rough past. And dude, when he came to our retreat, he wasn't even using his real name because he was afraid that homeowners wouldn't use him if they looked up his past. And we were like, no, dude, you got to cut that out. Like, be proud of who you are. It's okay. Your past is your past, but you've overcome that. If they don't want to work with you over that, that's not even who you are anymore. That dude is dead and gone. Be proud of who you are now. And so he came to a Revolt retreat in December of 2022, and we had him bring all his cards with his fake name on them, and we burned them, all of them. And so we saw him last year go from 1 million before Revolt to 8.5 million last year after he joined Revolt. This year, he was just texting me yesterday, thinks he's going to do 15 million. Just story after story. Sean Winkle's another one, dude. Seeing people overcome their battles and their struggles is so fulfilling. It makes it all worth it, you know?
Yeah, man. And that just gave me goosebumps because I do know a lot of those people and I know the stories behind them. And as humble as you are, you know, a guy like Taylor Ammons is going to tell you straight up, the reason why I'm still here on this planet is because of people like you. And the fact that he gets to be around people like you is what's helped save his life, you know? And I definitely respect your humility there, but you do a lot and you give a lot to these people and you deserve to be, you know, applauded for that, my friend. So that's really great stuff. We're about 2/3 of the way through our conversation and everything's been awesome so far. Life has been great. We've built RoofCon up. It's the premier event. You've helped so many people. Now let's talk a little bit about the other side of the page, because life and social media, they're very seldom the same. Yeah. You know, we put our best side out on social media. We tell everybody how great we're doing. And, you know, you said it yourself. People look at you and say, wow, you're killing it. You must be rocking. And, you know, the reality of the matter is life is a struggle. And at certain points in time, it can be very, very difficult. And I know that you have had to overcome quite a few obstacles over the last couple of years in your personal life. You've had people attack your character. You got bit by a mosquito and ended up having malaria. So
you could make it more dramatic. You could say like an alligator, a grizzly bear, something, you know, not a mosquito.
Well, no, this is what scares me the most because I see these mosquitoes over here in Texas all the time. And now I know your story. I'm like, oh, man, like they test positive for West Nile virus. And now I believe that could actually happen. So let's talk a little bit about it. You know, like I said, you've had to overcome some things. I don't get into other people's business, but I know that there was a couple years ago where you were defending yourself in something that had to do with your roofing business. And I'm not familiar with that story. And if it's not something you want to dig deep into, I understand, but tell me a little bit about it, because when I see stories like this, the one thing I always think is I know this person personally, and I will base my opinion on them 100% on our interactions. And I think it's unfortunate that not everybody does that. And sometimes people will jump on board and pile on when things are really looking bad for people. Tell me a little bit about it, man. Like, what did you have to overcome there? And how did that change you as a man?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, for one, it balded me, all the stress. You can see I'm thinning pretty.
I got you. I wear a hat for a reason.
Well, I shaved it when I was in the Marines at the fire department, so that day's probably coming, but at least I look better with a beard. I couldn't have a beard back then, but no, man. So in 2021, you know, I told you we got pretty serious about Cornerstone in 2019. That next year in 2020, we had our first 8-figure year. We're growing, rolling, opening new markets, had a lot of good things in place, systems and processes, the six-figure blueprint, recruiting funnel, all the things. And early off in that year, January of that year, I had a friend of mine approach me and say, "Hey, man, I know some guys that are looking to acquire a roofing company. You should meet with them." And I'm like, "No, I'm not really interested. Like, we're not in a place where we could sell yet, at least not for what I'd want. Like, we're just not there yet." And he's like, "Well, dude, I think it'd be a good opportunity. If nothing else, you learn something." I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. I probably could learn something." So I fly out, I meet these guys. And by these guys, one main dude that was running this company. It was a public company. It was traded. And when I say public, I don't mean like some big NASDAQ company. It was OTC, pink sheets. And so it's getting traded. I go out and meet this guy, show him everything we've got with Cornerstone. He liked what we had because he wanted to integrate a lot of it into the companies that they already had. And so he throws around some numbers right there in person. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like if you're throwing those numbers out, I could probably make something happen. And so I ended up leaving. I met him for lunch. I met him again for supper that day. The next morning, I fly back home, land in Charlotte to come to Greenville, GSP. And by the time I'm in Charlotte, I have an offer from him in my inbox. Great offer, multiple 8 figures. And I'm like, damn, like if this is for real, then I'd probably be pretty interested. So we go through the process, talk through it, some due diligence, whatever, lack of due diligence compared to some of the other stuff I've been through with like private equity. Didn't really take much time. They were just like rushing into it. If you go back and research the company, this is all public. It was a public deal. You could research the lawsuit. You can research the things that the judge said about them. You can look all this stuff up. So if you look back to that timing, right before that is when Biden was put into office. And when Biden was put into office, solar stocks, boom, just shot up. So they were getting a ton of money. This company was getting a ton of money to go out and do acquisitions. And so that's kind of what led to the acquisition was they fell on some cash. And they're like, hey, we want to buy companies. They gave me some cash and millions in shares. Right before we closed the deal, I'm like, originally we had negotiated for 60%, but they wanted 100%. So I was like, hey, what would you give me for 100%? That way I'll be all in and I can help you guys grow this thing. Because my main focus was going to be going out and getting other roofers to roll into this. And this was really before private equity even dipped their toes into the industry. This was, a public company want to do a roll up. And so, I was like, yeah, let's do 100%. They gave me what I wanted for it. And we started, man. And in that first 30 days, I went out, I lined up some potential acquisitions. We closed on one of those pretty quickly. About 2 months into it, we closed March 1st of 2021. About 2 months into it, this was May of 2021. I had said, hey, I really want to throw like a retreat. I'm a retreat guy. I do retreats all the time. So I'm like, hey, I want to do a retreat and get all the leadership from all these companies that you guys own at the same place, talking to each other, talking about a mission statement because we didn't have a mission statement, talking about core values. We didn't have core values, talking about the goals that we have because we didn't have any goals, and just nobody talked to each other. There was no communication. And so I wanted to get everyone together. And I said, hey, man, if you'll approve this, if you think it wasn't worth it at the end of the day, or anyone in the group says it wasn't worth it, I'll personally pay for it out of my pocket. And so he said, yeah, let's do it. We throw this retreat in May, and I run the retreat. We come up with core values. We come up with a mission. Can't hear me? It's showing you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, you're breaking up now. The host has unmuted your.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up.
All right, so we're back to recording, ladies and gentlemen. We just went through a little bit of a fiasco. I'm not sure what happened, but my Keepin It Rio back there is gone. Yeah. I have a feeling that my internet connection might have been a little faulty for a split second there, but we were in the midst of your venture into private equity, and things were starting to kind of show themselves a little bit, and that's kind of where we fell off.
Yeah. So I think maybe where I lost you was talking about the retreat. I run this retreat. We get core values established, mission statement established, all the things. And that next day after we do that, the CEO comes over to my cabin. We're at this ranch with a bunch of little cabins, and he offers me with a pen and pad, like literally a freaking little pad. He writes it out. He makes me this offer to be the CEO of the entire company. And I'm like, yeah, that actually sounds pretty good, you know. And I'll be honest, like for me, initially it was kind of an ego thing because I was like, oh man, this is sick. Like this big public company, I get to be the CEO. It just sounded really good. It sounded cool. I wanted to be one of the first in the industry to do that. And we talked through it more and more. As we got closer, there was a press release ready to go out. I had brought in Troy Clymer with Balanced Claims. He was going to be the COO. So I'd be CEO, he'd be COO. And the current CEO wanted to change some of the terms. And I just wasn't cool with it. As I learned more stuff about the company, I was kind of worried about the liabilities I'd have, some of the things that they had done, decisions they'd made. And so I decided not to do it. And it kind of went downhill from there. Started threatening to sue me to get out of the original deal with my company, although that had nothing to do with me taking over as CEO of their company. And so we went back and forth on that throughout 2021. And then in January of 2022, they sued me. And I told them to. I kept telling them, like, you can sue me. Like, I've done my part in terms of our agreement. So you can sue me. We can go through the process. That's fine. Well, when they sued me, they said lots and lots of bad things about me that weren't true and pretty hurtful. And I found out who my real friends were in the industry is the simplest way I could put it. You know, there's a lot of people that I had. I'm a big, anyone could say this, and I don't say this as like a pat on the back to myself, but I like to give more than I take. And so I'm always keeping score. You know, if we go out, I want to buy your lunch more times than you buy me lunch. Like I'm trying to get yours every 2 times, and then I might let you get me that 3rd time, and then I'm going to get the next 2, and I keep score. And there was plenty of people who I had done so much more for than they had ever done for me, that even those people had turned their backs on me. And even those people had gone out of their way to block me or talk crap about me on Facebook. And dude, it was a really hard time in my life. Like didn't even have the decency to reach out to me and hear my side, you know, and it really didn't take much research at all. If you went and researched that company, the CEO of that company, his past, and me to see who you think would be in the right there. And so, man, the lawsuit really only lasted a couple months, and they saw that I wasn't going to bend over for them. And I'm a pretty stubborn dude. I was like, hey, I can go back to living in a trailer if I have to, but I'm going to prove to you guys and to the world that I'm not who you say I am, and I didn't do the things that you say I did. So they came to me with a settlement offer that was pretty stout. And initially I said, no. I'm like, nope, we're going to go the distance. I want to prove in court. Well, then a couple of like comments came down from the judge, all these things, again, public, where she says some pretty direct things that basically insinuate like they're full of crap. And they gave a better settlement offer where I got to keep the millions of dollars in cash, millions of dollars in shares, and get my company back. And so that was really just a no-brainer. Like once we saw the settlement offer, it was like, okay, if people still think I did it, if people still think I did all the things they said I did, and I got my company back and got to keep all this money in shares, they're just stupid. They're not looking into it. What it was for the company, and this is just real talk right here, man. It's like for them, I had a make whole provision in place. So at 1 year, if the stock dropped, they owed me the difference in value. And so they owed me it totally 127 million shares total is what I was owed. And so they didn't want to have to issue those additional shares because it was going to dilute the shareholders, which makes them lose faith because then the stock price goes down and yada, yada, yada. So in a weird way, you know, my wife would say different. My wife can hold a grudge better than me. I try to have a little bit of empathy. In a weird way, I can slightly understand why they did it. They didn't have to say all the negative things that weren't true, but I understand why they tried to get out of paying me. I'll say that. But it worked out great, man. I got the company back, the people that I love, the team that I love and I built. We're doing better than ever. I found out who my real friends were. I got to keep all that cash, keep all those shares. It worked out great, man. I'm grateful for that time. But it did happen like back to back. That happened, and then the loss of RoofCon happened right after that. So it took me a while to get through those tough seasons because you're questioning yourself and you're having so much self-doubt around, am I who I say I am? Am I as good as I think I am? Am I this great business owner? And can I do this? And can I do that? And can I rebuild it? Can I start over? Have too many people lost faith in me? Are people not going to come to RoofCon because they've heard these things about me? There's a million questions going on in your head.
Yep. And dude, I mean, that right there, that changes you as a person. You know, like you said, you find out who your true friends are, you understand how harsh the world can be and how judgmental people can be before they even really know what's going on. And the best part about that is, like you said, that at the end of the day, it ended up working out for the better, and you're going to be a better person because of it. But there was then something else that happens shortly thereafter to you, and we kind of hit on it a little bit, but to me this is one of the more fascinating things, is that you you got malaria. Like, that's pretty random. I guess you're the only person I know that's ever had malaria. So
Yeah.
how does one go about getting malaria? And I know that it was probably very dire at times. You know, tell me a little bit about that journey, because you know I'm happy you're here to tell me about it.
Well, here's the quick how to get malaria step by step if you are really just dying to get it. You A, go to Uganda, B,
Uh,
take the preventative medicine that they ask you to take, and C, you don't follow the dress code of wearing long pants and shoes and long shirts. You wear flip flops and basketball shorts and t-shirts, and then yeah, you just get bit. That's all you got to do. It's pretty simple. But yeah, man, it was. Those are kind of three back-to-back seasons. There was some space between, there was lawsuit, loss of RoofCon, very back-to-back, same year. Then there was some space. We went through first half of 2023 before I went to Africa, before I went to Uganda in September of 2023 and contracted malaria. But yeah, even during that time, there's still like dealing with a lot of that self-doubt. And again, so thankful for malaria, man. Like I go over there, was over there. I spoke at this event, like this business event, did some mission work. We did like praise and worship each night. And I woke up one night at like 3 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. And dude, I can't sing. I can't play any musical instrument. I got nothing musical in my body. But I enjoy writing. I've always enjoyed writing. And so I wake up at 3 a.m. and I start writing this song, and it's called Need You Now. And it's a Christian song, and it's called Need You Now. And so I start writing it, and I'm excited about it. I feel like it's pretty good. And one of the guys with me, Joey, he gets up at 7 a.m. like, Joey, hey, it's one of my buddies, and he's a worship pastor back home here in the States in Ohio. And I'm like, hey, help me finish this song. Like, I don't know anything about chorus, pre-chorus, bridge. Help me put the song together. So he does. Him and Dylan Mullins help me structure the song. And so the last night that we're in Africa, we saw a mosquito one time. On the last night we went out to eat, we saw some mosquitoes flying around above us, but they had candles at this outdoor restaurant to keep them away. So I saw them there, never touched me. You just see them flying in the air. That's the only time I saw them. That night we go home to the hotel. We have this group of 4 Africans that were with us that were like background. They were singing, helping us out with this song. We finished recording this song, and I have it recorded. It's great. At the end of that, we're all circled up praying. And we feel these mosquitoes pegging our feet. I got flip-flops on. And I'm like back and forth, like kicking my feet. The Africans are praying for us. And I actually stopped everyone from praying because we were getting lit up with mosquitoes. And so I'm like, hey, can we sit down and just kind of talk it out this last 30 minutes before we go to bed? Because we had an early flight the next morning. And so I felt like crap, dude, in that moment, because I cut them off from praying. When the last African finished, the Americans did not pray for the Africans because I wanted to sit down and keep the mosquitoes off of me. And turns out we got malaria right then after finishing that song, Need You Now. And it was me and another Revolt member. We took a group, mainly Revolt members, over there to do that work. And another guy, JP Wilson, I don't know if you know him, out of Ohio, he got it as well. Me and him were the two to get it. And you don't know that you have it. It takes about 2 weeks, the incubation period. And so about 2 weeks later, I was doing Fearless 44. I came back from Africa, started Fearless 44 that Monday or whatever. And I just got so sick, dude. I couldn't even hardly walk. There's videos on Facebook because I'm doing my Facebook Live, and I'm just like a zombie. I look horrible, barely walking. And another Revolt member that didn't even go on the trip with us, that supports an orphanage in Uganda, hits me up and he's like, hey man, have you gotten checked for malaria? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just sick. Maybe I got COVID. I don't know. And he's like, well, you should get checked. It's serious. Like, you should get checked. And I just kind of brush him off. I'm like, no, dude, it's been a couple of weeks, whatever. I didn't realize it took a couple of weeks to show up. And so the next day he sees me on my Facebook Live again, like how bad I looked. And he hits me up again. He said, hey, man, I know you don't want to go to the hospital, but you need to stop doing Fearless 44. I had a buddy last year go to Uganda, contract malaria, didn't take it serious. When he finally did, he went to the doctor. They didn't take it serious and died. And so now I'm like thinking, I'm thinking about it. I'm not too stubborn. I'm like, okay, I got kids. Like, maybe I should consider it. Well, thankfully, Eric reached out to my wife too, directly to my wife. And this is a Revolt member. And he reaches out and he's like, you need to take him to the hospital. And dude, I just remember, I can't even explain what it feels like, dude. I mean, it feels like you're dying. Like you're hot, you're cold, you're sweating everywhere. You can't stop shivering. You're biting your tongue because you're freaking mouse chatter, just everything. And I remember laying in the shower, just shivering with hot water on. We got this big shower with a couple shower heads, and I'm just trying to warm up. And just finally, my wife said, I'm calling the hospital, and I'm getting a room, and we're headed that way. And I just didn't even argue with her. And sure enough, we get tested, have malaria. Doctor says this was a Wednesday. Says if you wouldn't have come until Friday, you'd have been dead. Your wife would have found you dead. They draw my blood after like a week in the hospital or whatever, and say that I'm good, 0.0. About 2 weeks go by, and I am still feeling rough, man. Like still feeling rough, and it's getting worse every day. And then finally it hits a head where it's as bad as it was the first time. And I'm like, dude, there's no way that I have it again. Like they said I was good. And this time it was even worse. And so I go back to the hospital and tell them, they're like, no, it's impossible. You can't have it, yada, yada, yada. They draw my blood. I have it. They only get a freaking vial that's like that big,
Right.
So of course there could be no malaria in there. I don't know why they don't draw a couple of vials, but yeah. So apparently just that little bit of blood they drew didn't have any, but I still had it, and it resurged. And yeah, they're like, and you have something else this time too, because this time I was on the pot a lot. I'm throwing up, and turns out I had freaking E. coli too. They come in there and they're like, hey, do you remember the outbreak at Jack in the Box like 20 years ago? And I'm like, yeah, the one where everybody died. And they're like, yeah, you have that kind. So that was really the only point when they told me that, and I knew I had both things, and I was in so much pain that I'm just like, this ain't good, man. Like I kind of feel like I have this. I talk about George Washington and John Rockefeller and people like that a lot, and like God's providence, protection over their life, and that He has a calling for you. And I choose to believe that about myself, and that God's got something big planned for me here on earth. I could die tomorrow, and it is what it is. But in my mind, I'm like, hey, I've got plenty of time left because I have so much left to accomplish. So I can honestly say, like, I never was sitting there dwelling like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to die. But, I'd be crazy if I didn't say it came across my mind. But it was a real wake up call, man. You go through those tough seasons of life, and you lose the friends and the people and the belief and yada, yada, yada. But then you sit there in a bed and you think, I could be gone. I turn on the TV, and I looked at commercials of St. Jude's, because St. Jude's Hospital is right next door. And I looked at those kids. When I got out of the hospital the first time, in between the two times, they sent me to a cancer treatment place to get my blood drawn for some reason. I don't know why, but they sent me to the cancer treatment place. And while I was there, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. So like the upstate's 1.5 million people. It's not like super small. I saw 2 people that I knew in there. One person I knew had cancer. The other, I didn't know they had cancer. And so I look at these things and I'm like, dude, I'm so freaking blessed. I shouldn't be worrying about, I lost a little bit of money on an event, or, I got sued, or people are going to talk bad about me. It doesn't matter, dude. At the end of the day, I am so blessed to be alive and well and healthy, and have a beautiful wife that supports me and was there for me through all of that, to have, 2 beautiful babies, to have real friends that stuck with me through it all and had my back and stuck up for me. There's just, so many things to be thankful for. That was a big turning point for me, laying in that bed, man, just thinking how blessed I am, and not to let the little things like that get me down. And it's really just completely re-energized me to get involved with the business again. Cause like Cornerstone for a while, like it was like I had this guilt because I had sold the company and kind of left the people, and, I just didn't feel worthy to be involved anymore. And I'm finally back to where like I'm enjoying it. I want to help people win. And I don't know, man, I'm just loving it. I'm so thankful for those seasons of life.
Yep. And I mean, it makes you who you are, and you're a survivor, dude. You came through all that stuff and you're better off for it. You're still helping people. So let's kind of wind this down a little bit. You're here. You just basically said it. You've still got some things to do here on this planet, some people to help. And what in your mind does that look like? You've obviously you think about a lot of things and you do a lot of things, and you're an action taker. What does it look like for you 10 years down the road? What are you ultimately trying to leave as your lasting legacy when we're long gone from this deal?
Yeah, man, it ties directly back into that life mission I told you before, just developing millions of leaders to impact millions of lives. For me, that's it. When I think of Revolt, like all the other things I have, at some point they could be sold, RoofCon and Cornerstone or roofing.com and all the other businesses that I have in the portfolio, they could be sold. But Revolt to me is like the Virgin to Richard Branson. Like it's the legacy piece for me that I want to live on for years and decades and centuries to come. I want it to continue to move people. I don't want it to just be a mastermind for business owners. I want it to be a place where leaders come to be better leaders, where people come to develop as leaders, even if they don't feel worthy of being a leader. I want it to be a movement where people revolt against average in all areas of their life. And what I call the 6 bricks in health and wealth and faith and growth and relationships and legacy. Don't settle for average. There's too much of that going on. We can revolt against average together and continue pushing to secure a legacy we're proud of. So that's what I want out of my life, man. And that's what I want out of my legacy. And I don't need people to know that I was the founder. I don't need people to know my name or know my face when I'm walking in an airport. Is that cool? Does it help the ego? Sure, it does. But I don't need that so long as when I'm gone, when Hunter's dead and gone, whether it's tomorrow or another 60 years from now, that I'm still impacting people with the work that I did. And I'm trying to do that. I wrote the book. I've had great feedback from that. I'm working on another one. I'm working on a children's book. Appreciate you. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm trying to continue to do things that are going to move the needle towards that legacy that I want to leave.
Well, man, I'll tell you what, Hunter, this has been an awesome hour. It went by super quick. And I think it's a little longer than an hour because that little technical glitch we had. But man, thank you so much for taking time to be on Keepin' It Rio. I really appreciate it. I wanted to have you on my show for a long time. And I saw that you posted that the other day and just wanted to reach out and see if you do it. Thank you for taking the time. Your story is absolutely inspiring. I always like to end with this. If somebody's watching this show today and they say, man, this guy's story is super inspiring, I'd like to, see what's going on with Revolt. I'd like to see what's going on with him. I live in the area. What's the best way that people can follow you and enjoy your progression through life as you continue to go?
Yeah, man, I'm pretty simple. I don't do like a ton of different social media platforms. If you hit me up on Facebook, you can just DM me on Facebook. I have all kind of free resources for business and life. As I mentioned, six bricks, fulfillment 50, some of those things. Embedded is an exercise that we do with parents for their kids to create life laws. Like my kids have life laws that they live by, and it's just something to root in them and help them to grow. We have business stuff, 8-figure checklist, 6-figure blueprint, all these different things. So if someone wants that, we have this thing we call the profit booster. It's like a 24-question test that takes 3 or 4 minutes. If they go through that, it'll break down their business and where they struggle the most based off of 4 core components, and it'll give them free resources. So if you just message me and tell me what you want, I got tons of free stuff I'm happy to give you. And if you decide you want to come to a retreat or something like that, that's great too. We can talk about it.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is what bettering our industry looks like and sounds like. And I appreciate it sincerely. Hunter, thank you for taking time. Everybody, thank you for watching. As always, I've got 162 of these things that we've done. And it's crazy to me because I never expected, anybody to ever watch it or want to be a guest or be willing to do it. So when I get guys like you on this, it really humbles me as well. And I'm very grateful for that. Thankful to everybody that watches and pays attention and the people that send stars and stuff like that. You guys are awesome. And we'll keep doing it as long as it's fun. And as long as I get guests like this, it can't not be fun. So until next time, remember to like and share and subscribe and do all that stuff. And as I always end every episode, the worst ending tagline in the history of podcasts is keep on keeping it Rio. Later on.